My mom said I needed a job. She said it would build character. I thought my character was doing just fine without it. But there I was, standing in front of Whole Foods. The sign flickered a sad, buzzing yellow. It looked like a place where dreams went to die, or at least where they went to buy discount canned soup. My stomach felt tight like I'd swallowed a knot. I just wanted to be home, in my room with my headphones on. The world made more sense when I could control the volume, but the rent needed to be paid, and my character apparently needed building. So I took a deep breath and pushed open the glass door. The little bell above it didn't even jingle, it just sort of sighed. The air inside smelled like old lemons and floor cleaner. It was a smell that clung to you. I could already feel it sticking to my clothes. A man with a shiny bald head and a name tag that said, Gary Manager, looked up from a stack of papers. He didn't smile, he just pointed a pen at me. "You're Bash?" he asked. His voice was flat like a tire with a slow leak. I nodded, my own voice stuck somewhere in my throat. He grunted, "Good, you're late." I wasn't, but I didn't say anything. Arguing on your first day felt like a bad idea. He handed me a bright orange vest. It was 2 sizes too big and smelled even more like lemons. This was my new uniform, this was my new life. Gary walked me through the store. He pointed out the aisles with a flick of his wrist. Produce, dairy, frozen goods, cleaning supplies. He said the words like he was bored of them, like he'd said them a million times before. The fluorescent lights hummed over my head, making everything look pale and washed out. The shelves were packed with cans and boxes, all with their labels facing forward. It was so neat, so organized. It felt nothing like my own life, which was a mess of feelings and thoughts I couldn't arrange. I just followed him, the giant vest swishing around me. I felt like a little kid playing dress-up, except it wasn't fun at all, it was just lonely. He stopped me near the back of the store by the pet food. "This is your section," he said. "Keep it stocked, keep it clean, don't make a mess." He stared at me for a second, his eyes narrowed. I got the feeling he didn't expect much from me. Maybe he was right. I didn't expect much from myself either. He turned and walked away without another word. I was left alone with bags of dog food and a growing sense of dread. The silence of the store was heavy. I could hear my own breathing. I pulled a box of cat food off a cart and started putting cans on the shelf. One by one, this was it. My character was being built, one can at a time. It felt incredibly painfully slow. The first few days were a blur of stocking shelves and sweeping floors. I didn't talk much. I just put on my headphones and tried to disappear into the music. But you can't disappear forever. Especially not when you work the night shift. The night crew was a different breed. They appeared when the sun went down, like strange, tired vampires who survived on coffee and gossip. There was Leo, a college kid who was always drawing in a little sketchbook. He sketched the customers, the dented cans, the wilting lettuce. He saw art in everything. I thought that was kinda cool. He had kind eyes and a smile that reached them, which was rare in this place. Then there was Maya. She was older, maybe in her 30s. She wore thick-rimmed glasses and had a new, brightly colored scarf every night. She told me she was writing a novel about a detective who solved crimes in a supermarket. She said Whole Foods gave her a lot of inspiration. Maya was the one who talked the most. She knew everything about everyone. She knew which customers always tried to use expired coupons and which ones stole grapes from the produce section. She seemed to see right through people. She looked at me once and said, "You've got an old soul, kid." I didn't know what that meant, but it made me feel a little less invisible. Trying to fit in was hard. It felt like walking into a conversation that had already been going on for years. They had inside jokes I didn't get. They talked about things that happened long before I started working there. I would just stand there nodding and trying to smile at the right times. It was awkward. I felt like a puzzle piece from a different box. One night, Leo showed me a drawing he did of me. I was standing by the dairy cooler, looking out at the empty store. In the drawing, I looked so small and so lonely. "That's how you look sometimes," he said softly, "like you're waiting for something." He wasn't wrong. I was always waiting. I just didn't know for what. Slowly, things started to change. Maya would save me a donut from the break room. Leo would ask me what I was listening to on my headphones. Little things. They started to feel like anchors in the weird, floating world of the night shift. We'd sit in the break room during our 15-minute break, the room smelling of burnt microwave popcorn. We'd talk about our dreams. Leo wanted to be a famous artist. Maya wanted to be a best-selling author. I didn't say what I wanted, I wasn't sure, but listening to them, I felt a little spark of something. Maybe hope. Maybe just the feeling of not being completely alone in the universe. It was Maya who first told me about Aisle 7. We were restocking the cereal aisle, which was right next to it. Aisle 7 was different. It was always darker than the others. The light at the far end always seemed to be flickering, or maybe it was just burned out. The products on its shelves were weird. Things you'd never seen before, cans with no labels, boxes covered in strange symbols, jars filled with murky, swirling liquids. "Never go down that aisle alone," Maya whispered, her voice low. "Especially not at night." She looked over her shoulder as if she expected someone to be listening. Her warning sent a little shiver down my spine. She told me stories. Legends of the night crew. She said people had vanished from that aisle. A stock boy named Kevin years ago. He went down to grab a box of something called Eternal Oats and just never came back. His cart was still there, half full. Another time a cleaner swore she saw strange figures moving in the shadows at the end of the aisle. They weren't customers, they weren't employees, they were just there. And then they were gone. "Gary says it's just old wiring and rats," Maya said, rolling her eyes. "But we know better. That aisle is a door to somewhere else." She tapped a can of alphabet soup. "And you don't want to know what's on the other side." Leo had his own theories. He thought it was a pocket dimension, a glitch in reality. He'd sit and sketch the strange symbols on the boxes. "They're not from any language I know," he'd say, his brow furrowed in concentration. "It's like they're not meant for us to read." He showed me a drawing he'd made of the aisle. In his version, the shelves stretched on forever, twisting and turning into impossible shapes. Tiny, shadowy figures peeked out from behind the strange products. It was creepy but also kind of beautiful. It made the boring, repetitive job feel like it had a secret. A mystery hiding in plain sight. It was something to think about other than how much my feet hurt. I tried to act like I didn't care. I'd laugh it off. "You guys are just trying to scare the new girl," I'd say. But I was curious. I couldn't help it. My whole life felt so predictable, so boring. The idea that something magical, or terrifying, or just different could be hiding in a grocery store was exciting. It was a secret I wanted to know. Sometimes, when I was working nearby, I'd find myself staring down aisle 7. It looked like a dark mouth, waiting to swallow you whole. The stories echoed in my head. A part of me was scared. But another bigger part of me wanted to see if they were true. I wanted to know what was at the end of that aisle. My first solo night shift felt like being the last person on Earth. The store was closed, the doors were locked, and the only sound was the hum of the refrigerators. Gary had left me a long list of tasks: mop the spills in dairy, face the cans in aisle 3, break down the cardboard in the back. It was a list of endless, boring things. The silence was the worst part. It was so loud, it made every little noise seem huge. The creak of a shelf, the rattle of my cart, the buzzing of that one light that never stopped. I felt so small in the huge, empty space. Loneliness was a cold, heavy blanket. I pulled it around me and got to work. I put my headphones on, but even my favorite songs couldn't fill the emptiness. The music felt thin, like it couldn't compete with the silence. I kept looking over my shoulder, expecting to see someone, a customer who had hidden after closing, a ghost, anything. But there was nothing. Just me and the endless rows of food. I started talking to myself just to hear a voice. "Okay, Bash, time to face the soup cans." It sounded stupid, but it helped. It made me feel a little less alone. I worked my way through the list, moving like a robot. My body was on autopilot, but my mind was racing. My curiosity kept pulling me toward aisle 7. It was like a magnet. I told myself to stay away. I told myself Maya and Leo were just messing with me. But I couldn't shake the feeling. From a distance I could see the light at the end of the aisle flicker. On, off, on, off. It was like a slow, steady heartbeat, or a warning. My own heart started beating faster to match it. "Just go look," a little voice in my head whispered. "What's the worst that could happen?" I thought about Kevin, the boy who disappeared. That was probably the worst that could happen. I tried to focus on my work, but my eyes kept drifting back to that dark, inviting aisle. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I finished my tasks with an hour to spare before the morning crew arrived. The whole store was clean and quiet. It was my chance. My heart was pounding in my chest. This was a stupid idea. I knew it was a stupid idea, but I had to know. I left my cart in aisle 6 and stood at the entrance to aisle 7. The air here was colder. It smelled different too. Not like lemons, but like dust and rain and something else. Something I couldn't name. Something ancient. I took a deep breath, my hands trembling just a little. And then I took my first step into the aisle. The first few feet of aisle 7 were almost normal. There were boxes of cereal, but the names were weird. Cosmic Crunch, Chrono Flakes. The mascots on the boxes had too many eyes. I kept walking, my sneakers silent on the linoleum floor. The further I went, the darker it got. The shelves seemed to get taller, leaning in over me. The products became stranger. I saw a jar that held what looked like a tiny captured storm cloud. A can vibrated softly in my hand when I picked it up. This wasn't just weird packaging, this was something else entirely. My fear was being replaced by a sense of wonder. I was about halfway down the aisle when I saw it, a flicker of movement at the far end, in the deepest shadows. I froze. My breath caught in my throat. It wasn't a rat, it was bigger. A shape, tall and thin, slipped behind a shelf. It moved so quickly, so silently. I wasn't sure if I had really seen it. Maybe my tired brain was playing tricks on me, but then I saw another one. And another. They were like living shadows, darting in and out of the darkness. They weren't threatening, they seemed busy, like they were stocking shelves, just like me. But their shelves were in a place I couldn't quite see. My heart was doing a drum solo against my ribs. I should have run. I should have turned around and gone straight back to the break room and never looked back. That's what a normal person would do. But I wasn't feeling normal. I felt like I was on the edge of a huge secret. I took another step, and another. I moved slowly, trying not to make a sound. The shadowy figures didn't seem to notice me, or if they did, they didn't care. I could hear faint noises now, a soft clinking sound like glass bottles being gently placed on a shelf, a low hum, like a quiet conversation in a language I didn't understand. I was almost at the end of the aisle now. The flickering light was right above me. It cast long, dancing shadows all around. The back wall of the aisle wasn't a wall at all. It shimmered. It looked like heat rising off a road on a hot day. It was like looking through a curtain made of water. The shadowy figures were walking right through it. They would step into the shimmering air and just disappear. And then new ones would step out, carrying strange glowing boxes. This wasn't a glitch. It wasn't rats. Maya was right. It was a door to somewhere else. And I was standing right in front of it. My hand was shaking as I reached out toward the shimmering wall. My fingers touched the air and it felt like cool running water. It tingled. I could feel a gentle pull like a current. I thought about everything that had led me here. The boring job, the loneliness, the feeling that I was waiting for something. Maybe this was it. Maybe this was the thing I was waiting for. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath and stepped through. For a second there was a feeling of falling, a rush of colors and sounds that made no sense. It was like being pulled through a straw. And then my feet were on solid ground again. I opened my eyes. I wasn't in Whole Foods anymore. The air smelled of damp earth and night-blooming flowers. I was standing in a marketplace, but it was unlike any I'd ever seen. The sky above was a swirl of purple and deep blue, with 2 moons hanging in it. The stalls were lit by glowing lanterns that floated in the air. The shadowy figures I had seen were here, but they weren't shadows anymore. They were people of all different shapes and sizes. Some were tall and graceful with pointed ears. Others were short and stocky with friendly, wrinkled faces. They were all busy, trading goods, laughing and talking. A kind-faced woman with moss-green hair noticed me. She smiled. "Lost, little one?" she asked. Her voice was like wind chimes. I couldn't speak. I just nodded, my eyes wide. She chuckled softly. "You came through the grocery door. We get a few of you every now and then. Don't worry, you're safe here." She introduced herself as Alara. She explained that this place was a crossroads, a place between worlds, and the aisle in Whole Foods was just one of many doors. People came here to trade things you couldn't find anywhere else. Starlight in a bottle, a song that could make you forget your sadness, a compass that pointed to what you truly wanted. Alara showed me around. She pointed out a baker who made bread that tasted like your favorite memory. She introduced me to a storyteller who wove tales from threads of moonlight. Everyone I met was kind. They told me their stories, stories of their worlds, of their lives. They were lonely too in their own ways. Travelers, outsiders, people who didn't quite fit in where they came from. In this strange, magical place, I felt a sense of belonging I had never felt before. I wasn't the weird, quiet new girl here, I was just me. And that was enough. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I needed to hide. I spent what felt like hours in that other world, but Alara told me that time moved differently there. "Only a few minutes will have passed back in your store," she said with a reassuring smile. I watched as the residents of the market went about their business. A small, furry creature traded a handful of sparkling pebbles for a loaf of the memory bread. A tall, elegant being bought a jar of whispers from a vendor who kept them in silk pouches. It was all so strange, so magical. But underneath it all, it was just life. People trying to find a little bit of happiness, a little bit of comfort. It wasn't so different from my world after all. My fear was completely gone now. It had been replaced by a deep sense of empathy. I talked to a young boy who had lost his laugh. He was trying to trade his favorite toy for a new one. I saw an old man looking for a memory he had misplaced. I realized that everyone, no matter what world they came from, carried their own sadness, their own loneliness. My own problems, which had felt so huge and overwhelming back in Whole Foods, suddenly seemed smaller. I wasn't the only one who felt lost. We were all just trying to find our way. My heart felt full, not with sadness but with a strange, warm understanding. Ilara sat with me by a fountain that flowed with glowing water. "This place is a secret," she said, her voice serious. "It is a refuge for those who need it, but it is fragile. The world outside, your world, is full of noise and disbelief. It could damage this place." She looked at me, her ancient kind eyes searching my face. "You have a good heart, Bash. You see with more than just your eyes. That is why you were able to find the door. Not everyone can." Her words made me feel proud. They made me feel seen. Someone finally saw the real me, the person hiding behind the quiet and the headphones. I knew I couldn't stay. My life was back through the shimmering curtain, my mom, my school, even my boring job, but something inside me had changed. I had seen something incredible. I had connected with people in a way I never thought possible. I felt stronger, braver. The loneliness that had been my constant companion felt distant. I had found a secret world, but I had also found a new part of myself. I wasn't just Bash, the quiet kid who stocked shelves. I was Bash, the girl who had walked between worlds. I was a keeper of a secret, and that felt like a very important job. It was time to go back. Ilara walked me to the shimmering doorway. It looked different from this side. It looked like a window into a normal, boring, brightly lit grocery store aisle. It looked like home. "Will I be able to come back?" I asked, my voice small. I didn't want to lose this place. I didn't want to lose this feeling. Ilara placed a warm hand on my shoulder. "The door will be there for you when you need it," she said. "But the secret must be kept. A promise is a powerful thing here. Will you promise to protect this place? To keep it safe in your heart?" I looked into her eyes and saw the trust she was placing in me. It was a heavy weight, but a good one. It felt important. "I promise," I said. And I meant it more than anything I had ever said in my life. This was my secret now, mine and Leo's and Maya's, even if they didn't know the whole truth. It connected us. I understood now that the aisle wasn't something to be afraid of. It was something to be protected. It was a place of hope for people who had lost theirs, and I was one of its guardians. I felt a surge of purpose that I had never felt before. My character wasn't being built by stocking cans, it was being built by this promise. I took one last look at the magical marketplace. The floating lanterns, the two moons, the kind faces. I tried to burn the image into my memory. I wanted to be able to close my eyes and see it whenever I felt lonely. Ilara gave me a small, smooth, gray stone from her pocket. "So you don't forget," she whispered. It was warm to the touch. I closed my hand around it, the stone fitting perfectly in my palm. I gave her a small, grateful smile. I didn't have the words to thank her for what she had shown me. So I just hoped my smile was enough. Stepping back through the shimmering curtain was just as strange as the first time. A rush of cold air, the smell of lemons, and the loud hum of the refrigerators. I was back in aisle 7. I looked at the clock on the wall. Only 5 minutes had passed. It felt impossible. I could still feel the warmth of the stone in my hand. I could still smell the night-blooming flowers. It wasn't a dream, it was real. I walked out of the aisle, my heart full. The store didn't seem so lonely anymore. It was just a place. A quiet place that held the biggest, most beautiful secret in the world, and I was a part of it. I finished my shift just as the first rays of sunlight started to peek through the front windows of the store. The morning light made the dusty air sparkle. It felt like a new beginning. Leo and Maya arrived for their shift, looking tired but smiling when they saw me. "You survived your first solo night," Leo said, giving me a friendly punch on the arm. "See, we told you it wasn't so bad." I just smiled. If only he knew. He looked over my shoulder toward aisle 7. "Any ghosts or monsters pay you a visit?" he asked, a twinkle in his eye. I thought about Ilara and the storyteller and the boy who lost his laugh. "Something like that," I said. Later I found Maya in the break room. She looked worried, staring into her coffee cup. "Just another rejection letter for my novel," she sighed. "Sometimes I feel like I'm just writing into the void." The old me would have just nodded and said something like, "That sucks." But I wasn't the old me anymore. I sat down next to her. I remembered the storyteller who wove tales from moonlight. "Don't give up," I said, my voice quiet but sure. "Your stories are important. Someone out there needs to hear them. I know it." Maya looked up at me, surprised. A small, genuine smile touched her lips. "Thanks, kid," she said. I needed that. Leaving the store that morning, I felt different. The sun was warm on my face. The world seemed brighter, more full of possibility. I wasn't just a lonely teenager going to a job I hated, I was a friend. I was a keeper of secrets. I had a purpose that went beyond stocking shelves. The loneliness I had carried for so long felt lighter. It wasn't gone completely, but it wasn't a heavy blanket anymore. It was just a part of me, just like the courage and the empathy I had found in the world beyond the aisle. I knew I wouldn't be alone anymore, not really. I had my friends, Leo and Maya, and I had the memory of a place with 2 moons in the sky. I walked home, the little stone from Alara safe in my pocket. Every now and then, I would touch it, just to make sure it was real. I had a secret that connected me to something vast and magical, and it made my own world feel less ordinary. I still had to go to school, I still had to help my mom with rent, I still had to work at Whole Foods. But now, when I walked into the store and put on my big orange vest, I would smile. Because I knew that just one aisle over, there was a door to another world, and knowing that made all the difference. My character was finally being built, not by the job but by the secret it had given me. And I was ready for whatever came next.